Welcome to the Situation Report. Very glad to have you joining me today. This is the show where we do our very best to give you the information and perspectives you need to navigate an ever-changing culture. If we themed this week at the Situation Report, this would be Tech Week. It just kind of worked out that way. So much going on in the tech world, particularly in the social media world. And of course, Elon Musk has really pushed that movement this week. A lot of conversation around that. And even on this show, we've talked about it a few times. We're going to talk about it one more time today, but from a different perspective. Today, we're asking the question, how does a move like this impact culture? Not exactly what is happening technically, what are the aspects or the bricks that need to be built on this wall for Elon to pull this off, but how does this impact our culture? And it really does. We miss this so often. We're going to talk about this with an incredible guest. Very glad that he would join us. Our guest today is Colin Pruitt. Colin is a writer and contributor with the American Conservative, Newsmax, Real Clear Politics. He's been involved in a bunch of other stuff and is here to help us understand what is happening in the world of social media. Colin, thanks for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. We're going to jump into what I believe is a very confusing topic, and I'm sure you can unpack it for us. Before we get there, can you give us a little bit of your background? I know you have kind of a diversity of experiences in the conservative media world. Talk to us a little bit about your background and how you kind of came to focus on some of these more cultural issues.
Yeah, so I got started in politics really young. I worked on various campaigns, just got involved with Turning Point USA was my first job in politics, working over in their field program with Charlie Kirk and all the great people up there. And served a brief time in the Trump administration at the Department of Homeland Security, which can't keep itself out of the news nowadays. And have just tried to be a fighter for, my grandparents and the people that I grew up with. And, I just think conservative solutions are the right way for the country. And hopefully we can execute on that a little bit more now that we're able to speak freely.
You work with Turning Point, and what an incredible organization. Are you encouraged by young conservatives and some of the things that they're doing right now, some of the things they're involved in?
Yeah, I think that's where the energy's at of the whole movement. I think you look around and kind of the new right, as it's called, the realignment that President Trump set off in 2016 has really just been kind of seized on, driven by, staffed by young people who I think are looking for new solutions. Obviously, most of our contemporaries are socialists, and that's unfortunate. And we're trying to fight back against that. But I think what we understand is that look, our contemporaries are looking for new ideas. They're crushed by student debt. They're run out of the housing market. They're victims of a globalized economy. There's no manufacturing jobs for them. There's hardly anything outside of service sector jobs for them. So we want to see the realignment that President Trump brought with that kind of America First agenda. But other people my age want socialism. I think what's true is that places like Turning Point, like me, young conservatives, all young people, we're going to drive change. It's just a question right now of if that's going to be left wing or right wing. Right. And I really hope that we embrace conservative solutions.
My daughter is 23. She's getting older all the time, so I always forget. 22, she's not quite 23. She attends Chapman University. She is getting ready to graduate there. And last night, Dennis Prager was there for an event put on by the Young Republicans Club. She sent me a picture. She got to do a meet and greet, and it was pretty awesome to see. But she took a picture of the protest that was taking place outside, which is funny, right? Because Chapman is an upper middle class, white South Orange County school. And there's 40 kids out there holding signs about how Dennis Prager's a fascist. But it really is interesting to see, and I'm encouraged to see young people going, there's got to be a better way, there's got to be a conservative answer, and being willing to step up and begin making some progress on that, because that really is the future.
Well, it's true, and the ace up our sleeve is we're outnumbered, but because we've had to fight, like I had crazy experiences on campus. I mean, people being arrested at protests, riots. And that was in the heart of Texas. And but our young people are sharper because they've had to defend their ideas. They've been in these battles, And it's not just me saying, oh, I'm a conservative and so I'm, so much smarter than the left. It's just that we've been battle tested.
Yeah.
By the time
Yeah.
you get out of college, you have to be sharp on your ideas. You're going to get graded down. You're going to get harassed. You're going to get called a fascist.
Mm.
I mean, your property damaged. It's really a intimidating place to be as a young person who's just trying to fit in. So, anytime you get a conservative, you're talking about someone who's very outspoken and ready to fight. And I think that's good for our future.
Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of their lives. He created the Giza Dream bed sheets. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for you and me. Mike found the world's best cotton called Giza. Mike's latest incredible deal is the sale of the year. Sale of the year. That means it's not going to happen again. This is the sale of the year. What is it? For a limited time, you will receive 60% off the Giza Dream Sheets that comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. You will receive a set for as low as $39.99. For a limited time, with any purchase, you will receive Mike's soft cover book free when you use promo code SITREP. Go to mypillow.com and click on the radio listener square and use promo code SITREP. Along with this offer, you will also get deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow mattress topper, MyPillow towel sets, and so much more. For those of you that would rather use the phone, and some of you are out there, you know who you are, call 1-800-870-0283. Use the promo code SITREP or mypillow.com and use the promo code SITREP. And as you mentioned, hopefully some of the platforms, some of the media that gives a voice to conservatives, and it's given a voice to liberals for a long time, give a voice to conservatives, is beginning to open up. Let's talk for a minute about Twitter and about Elon Musk. I think it's really interesting what's happening with Twitter, but I think the story is much larger than Twitter and much larger even than Elon Musk. But let's start there. Can you give us an overview of what has happened, what is happening, what is going to happen, and kind of what it means for that platform in particular, and then we can kind of work from there.
Yeah, so basically Twitter after, I guess, January 6th last year, Jack Dorsey, we're not really sure the circumstances, but the old kind of CEO of Twitter, he just kind of bailed right after all of the censorship crackdown came in, right? And so I thought that was really interesting. And this guy, Parag Agrawal, he comes in and is runs a pro-censorship regime at the company. Really cracks down. I mean, just in the last weeks, you had seen Charlie Kirk was thrown off Twitter, Tucker Carlson was thrown off Twitter, the Babylon Bee. And it looks like the Babylon Bee was the one that caught Elon Musk's eye. And he decided that he was going to purchase it, bought it for $54.40 a share, which was generous, very generous for Twitter. And so he upped the market value. They talked about doing poison pills. They talked about fighting back, but I think he came in with such an offer they were getting regulatory trouble if they wouldn't accept it. And so that's kind of the overview is that he's working on it. I think they've got a pending offer, and they'll have to work through a lot of the just details in the coming months. I think a lot of people think that it's already a done deal or that Twitter's already being run by Musk because there's been a lot of activity and things have changed quite drastically on the platform in just a few days, but I think that's more from excitement. We don't know what Elon Musk's regime is going to look like over at Twitter. And, I think there's a lot of reason to be excited about it. There's a lot of reason to be skeptical about it. But regardless, it's a massive cultural shift. You're talking about one of the few major tech institutions and the one that carries the most elite opinion, where journalists get their information and share their information. You're talking about one of those being captured by someone who at least has a face value commitment to American principles, like traditional American principles, like free speech, free expression, free press. We've kind of had a corporate cartel that's controlled all of tech and all of information for a decade now, and that's broken. And you can see with the way some of the people are reacting on Twitter that they're threatened by it. People in the media. And they're even having the SEC, rattle their swords a little bit. They're introducing bills in Congress. This is a real threat. If you control the narrative and you've had controlled the narrative for decades on decades on decades, they probably just lost control of it, at least for now. We'll have to see how tough Musk is.
What to that? What, and this is hard to understand, I think, and I'm not sure you can know, but as you observe this, what is his motivation, other than just liking the satire of the Babylon Bee, which we all love? What is a guy like that who has everything you could want? Why would he go through the trouble? Why would he spend the money? Why would he get involved in something like this? What's his ultimate motivation? I mean, I'd like to believe that he just loves the First Amendment and he really cares about America. Maybe he does. Maybe that's it. But is there something else there? Something we should be watching for?
I can't read his mind.
Sure.
I can't read into
Sure, of course.
billionaires. I would say that one of the motivating factors he did talk about, like on a TED Talk, was that for his businesses, he has to have a place where people can express their views freely. For example, he probably was watching what was going on during the COVID-19 pandemic and all of the suppression of what was scientific truth, and they were calling it disinformation. So if you're Elon Musk, you've named your company after Tesla, right?
Yeah.
And Tesla was a man who had his scientific truth proven, models of, electric distribution, all kinds of patents just be ground down and censored and silenced by, Thomas Edison, some of the financiers of the day, right? But through some of the newspapers even. And so I think he understands that for his own projects to succeed, because they are advanced, they are revolutionary in every way, what he's doing at Tesla, he's going to have a place where free information that's accurate about his companies can flow, because he can't risk these kind of follow the science crackdowns coming for Tesla, because they're not scientific, and he's got to worry about kind of CDC bureaucratic regime putting him out of business, right?
Do you worry at all that Jack Dorsey this last week said that Elon Musk is someone he trusts? Now, it is weird. We don't know what happened to Dorsey in the last 6 months. But is that a concern at all? Is that something that we should go, well, maybe it's a red herring of sort?
Yeah, well, I think that we've got to be skeptical about Musk. Like, I'm glad he's a tenfold improvement over the people from the past.
Sure.
And I think even Dorsey was better. I mean, Dorsey leaving Twitter was a real blow to the institution. He wasn't good, but the people that replaced him were much, much worse, far more ideologically driven, and just far more nakedly partisan.
Right.
I would say. But on the other half of that, Musk is not someone who's conservative. And if you go to he talked about political neutrality for the platform. And I think that's what Dorsey's into, and that's fine. But if you kind of think about, like, say, Robert Conquest's rules of politics, right? Number 2 is that any organization that is not intentionally or explicitly right-leaning will over time become left-leaning. And I wonder if Elon understands the nature of that threat. Because right now he can say, well, I'm for political neutrality, we're going to institute free speech. That's true. But he's going to have to reshape the Twitter bureaucracy, the people who actually control the algorithms. He's too busy. He can't make every decision about which account is going to be favored and which account is going to be throttled, or who's going to be banned and who's going to not be banned. He's going to have to put that in the hands of a tech bureaucracy. And it's going to be very difficult for him to find and maintain a workforce and a culture of free speech, in Silicon Valley.
Right.
I'm interested to see if he moves. I think that would be just a really telling sign. Where he moves it is going to reflect the culture of the company.
Right.
But if he believes that he can maintain a politically neutral platform with the ethos of the modern left, I think he's in for it. I think they're going to come for him. I think they're going to push him, and he's going to either have to take an explicitly center-right stance, or he's going to have to eventually turn it back over to the woke mobs. There's just not going to be in between, because the people who are going to be on this platform, they don't believe in free speech, and if half the people don't believe in free speech, they're going to demand silence, regardless if he's permitting it or not.
When we talk about something like this from a cultural perspective, the impact culturally, how do you view that, or how do you think about that? It's easy to say, well, this is just social media, and I think a lot of people, you and I would be much more engaged with what's happening in the social media world than 90% of people
Oh yeah.
probably in America. But it does impact culture because it impacts how we think. How do you think about those things, the connection between social media and culture?
Yeah, I mean, it's the public square. I think when people talk about that, they're 100% right. It is the place where people go, interact, and get their information. And for better or for worse, that's the way it is right now. And it was being throttled. So, like, if I have an idea that's groundbreaking or revolutionary, but it threatens institutional power, it's censored. And that's the current regime, and it needs to be fixed. Musk is fixing it, but it's absolutely every ounce of culture, every little bit of culture has changed. If parents who might be listening are, uh, if they're looking at their kids and wondering, man, what are they into? I didn't teach them this, or
Yeah,
I've never seen
yeah.
any of this stuff. Hop on their phone and give a scroll through Snapchat and look at
Mm.
the Snapchat news section. I mean, it's unbelievable some of the stuff that's on there. It makes some of the critical race theory and critical gender theory stuff in school books uh, look appropriate.
Sure,
It's
sure.
it's it's really an incredible place, and but Facebook is still the largest. Instagram I think has more sway in some ways, but as far as Twitter specifically, the cultural implications is this is where elite and whatever you want to say about elite opinion, most elite opinion's bad and it's wrong, and whoever went to Harvard usually their opinion's not good.
Right.
I haven't, but whatever they're saying, that's where they're saying it. They're
Yeah.
saying it on Twitter, right? And so if you want to keep up with what's coming down the pipe, because the left works in a way where it's like they kind of target about 10 years out. They'll say, well, maybe someday, if we ever really got the chance, 10 years from now, we might do this, but
Mm.
not really. We're not going to do
Mm.
that. They'll promise the voters, of course, whether, it comes to gay
Yep.
marriage, comes to any
Yep.
social revolution the country's endured. But that all starts on these platforms. This is where you get what they're really thinking. They're tweeting it out for the world to see. They might campaign on something totally different, but on Twitter, they're among themselves. They feel among themselves, among the other kind of blue check Brooklyn,
Yeah.
Washington
Yeah.
D.C. elite. And so they're literally just putting out everything they believe on Twitter for the world to see, and there's almost no consequences to it, but it has the effect of moving the Overton window left and left and left and left. And when they censor any pushback to it, then you're just speeding the process up
Yeah.
because there's no pushback whatsoever. They keep when they censor a conservative, they are censoring conservatives socially. There's no way out of that for a conservative. It ruins people's careers. Entire platforms are built on social media. For example, we would not be able to get this show out to
Yeah.
people and have this conversation go public without social media.
Yeah.
And so I think they understand the power of that. They understand the cultural power of that. One more quick example. The whole post-George Floyd Black Lives Matter
Yep.
movement was only possible through social media, and that had a profound and probably irreparable impact on American culture and how we treat police, how we just regard everyday law and order. The idea that parents would be okay with sending their kids to schools with tents and syringes at the public parks 5 years ago. That's outrageous,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
because of social media's proliferation and its impact on culture, now this is every American city.
Yeah.
And so we just have to be really careful, and we have to understand that social media can speed processes that used to take decades and required intense debate. It can end the entire argument, and they can speed run their entire agenda through in 6 months using the power of this technology. And with censorship, there's absolutely no check on their power. So Elon Musk buying this is giving at least a little bit of a check back, to conservatives and just to everyday people who are just not on board with kind of the permanent revolution that we're enduring.
We were not made to live in isolation. Sadly, many of our veterans feel they need to fight their battles alone. This self-isolation has led to the staggering statistic of more than 20 veterans taking their lives every day.
A lot of guys end up drinking, a lot of guys end up losing hope. Someone will go to the VA and they'll try to get, prescription medications to help with PTSD. You know, they'll get pills for anxiety, they'll get pills because they can't sleep. Now they get pills for depression. Before they know it, they're taking 12 different medications. And when it's not working out, these guys lose hope. And that's why there's 23 guys a day committing suicide.
The mission of Mighty Oaks is to eradicate the veteran suicide epidemic and help our warriors change their legacies. As a result, we've been able to help over 4,000 veterans and first responders by equipping them with the tools they need to live the lives they were created to live.
Everything they said just kept hitting me in the heart over and over and over again. It's like all the things that I didn't know that I needed to hear. And I opened my heart to God that week, dude, and like, I've been a different person ever since.
Our faith-based, peer-to-peer approach has one of the highest success rates of any program available today, offering hope and understanding to those who need it most. We provide our programs and resources, including travel, at no cost to our warriors.
I remember talking to a licensed social worker who actually handed me a pamphlet to Mighty Oaks. So I went. And I'm glad I did.
By aligning their lives to biblical principles, these men and women are able to lead their families, their communities, and our nation. Our mission is to serve and restore our nation's warriors and families who have endured hardship through their service to America, and to help them find new life purpose through hope in Christ. It's your generosity that can make a difference in the lives of the men and women who have fought for our country and our freedoms. Now that they're home, don't let them fight alone. Learn more at mightyoaksprograms.org. That is such a great perspective. I fall into kind of the leave me alone category most of the time. As a conservative, I mostly just want to be left alone. I remember the first time someone suggested I get a Twitter account. It's been a lot of years ago now. And I thought, why would I want to do that? Why would I have any interest in knowing what other people are talking about or having them know what I'm talking about? My life has changed since then, but I remember having that conversation. We talk a lot about what it is that conservatives can do, how conservatives can deal with this. And so many strategies are already being employed to prop up Elon Musk, to prop up Twitter. We're seeing a lot of changes, a lot of shifting happen. But people who aren't professionals, people who have kids, they've got jobs, maybe they're like a lot of conservatives where they just want to be left alone. With everything that you just said, it's very, very clear, and it should be, that this impacts their lives whether they know it or not. Where you send your kids to school, whether or not you have to fight the COVID vaccine fight, whether or not you have access to, the health care that you want, all these things, it happens there. What can average people do, or what should average people do to encourage free speech, to encourage conservative thought, to prop up platforms and others who are doing the right thing? How do normal people, or how should normal people not only think about this, but what should they do about it?
Yeah, so the most important thing, none of it matters. Speech and all of that, it's incredibly important, but it's even less important, I think, something people treat as kind of a peripheral issue. But the one thing that everyone can do is become familiar with the idea of algorithms. Basically they're these kind of math equations that drive. It's very complicated tech, but it drives what you do and do not see on social media, right? Because it's not someone posting something, they are selecting. It's almost like a newspaper editor, right? The New York Times will select what facts you see and what facts you do not see. But the difference is that you can choose to subscribe to the New York Times, or you can choose not to subscribe to the New York Times. In a modern economy, everything is connected to social media, whether that's through marketing, whether that's through data. I mean, you name it, retail, everything is done through social media. It's a massive marketplace on top of a public square. It's just an open air bazaar for all of American life. And but these algorithms decide who gets in the public square and who gets in the market and who doesn't. And so we could be talking about, say, Amazon's algorithms could be picking winners and losers according to, what benefits Jeff Bezos, for example. Twitter's algorithms, we have a pretty good idea of what they do. We know they censor conservatives, but we don't know the extent of it. And we don't know how they did it. And so the most important thing that anybody today can do is they can pressure whether that's on their social media accounts, whether that's talking to people, whether that's being active in politics and talking to their congressmen. But the most important thing we do is not just thank Elon Musk, right? I think there's been a lot of thanking going
Yeah.
on. That's great. He's going to make a profit. But what I'm interested in is getting action from Elon Musk. And what everyone should be saying is release the algorithms. We want to know why President Trump was thrown off Twitter. We want to know why Tucker Carlson was banned from Twitter. We want to see it. We want to see the notes. We want to see the, even publish the, I understand it's part of their competitive, it's part of their market value. It's having these algorithms. It's what brings value to their platform. But they're going to have to release that to the public because too much of the market, too much of our media, too much of our culture, too much of just every little, you name it, church, every aspect of your life is impacted by this, and there's zero democratic accountability over these platforms. I personally think that if these technologies had existed, way back when, the founding fathers would have passed constitutional amendments protecting people's data rights and requiring algorithmic transparency because it is so integral to your life. Not to have control over it is to lack a serious degree of it's to lack liberty. You have being deprived of human liberty, and it leads itself to saying, for example, like the social credit system in China, right? If we don't know what's going on in these algorithms, we could be being fed into one of those social credit systems without even knowing it. There's indication that that's already what's happening. And you're talking about Google, Amazon, Facebook and Instagram, of course, are together now. TikTok, which is owned by the Chinese government and, directly works with ByteDance and gets its orders from Beijing. You're talking about that's being broadcast in the minds of millions and millions and millions of America's young Chinese selected content.
Right.
All of it has to be regulated. But the first place we can start is Twitter, because we have someone who is at least committed to these principles. Musk has talked about doing some algorithmic transparency, but there's going to be enormous pressure from the tech community for him to not release those, because they all know it's going to blow the lid off of all of their practices, because Twitter's algorithms are probably going to be mundane compared to people who have the information that, say, Google has on the average American.
That's incredible advice. I think a lot of people take for granted the information. You Google something, it's become is that a verb? To Google something?
Yes.
we say we're going to Google it, and you just accept the information that comes up as that's the information. Last night, my younger kids at dinner were asking me a question about President Trump, because they ask weird questions because they're kids. And I didn't know the answer. I can't even remember what the question was. I said, I have no idea. Why don't you ask our Google Home, right, sitting over there? So my daughter did. Google Home would not answer the question. It was the craziest thing to me. I don't know, but here are some articles. And it was a list of articles that had nothing to do with the question that was asked. And that's an algorithm saying, we're not going to give you the information you're looking for. People need to understand that. How do they push back, though? How do we demand accountability or oversight? It's one thing to say, I know I'm being lied to. I think it's another thing to know what to do about that. How do I demand that Twitter does what they say they're going to do, and how do I get control of some of the other platforms?
So I think I think what you have to do is demand more of your Republican congressman. I know that this is a private industry, and obviously, I guess you can tweet at Elon Musk if you want to lie to him, but it's Elon Musk. He paid outright for the company. He's going to do with the company what he wants. If people want to take it that far, I think. But what people really need to understand is that this is beyond an issue of free markets. These markets are so vital and they're so revolutionary that they are going to take an update in our thinking about what a republic needs, what political liberty requires. And that's going to take people pressuring their congressmen saying, look, I understand that you're for the free market, but if you truly want a free market, you're going to have to adjust your conceptions. A lot of Republicans, especially, and this is kind of getting back to talking about young Republicans being a little bit different and more aggressive. A lot of the older Republicans are kind of love the idea of like the Reagan Republican, like 1980s, limited government, free markets, and all of that's good, and it's all true. But the 1990s, the tech revolution fundamentally changed the world, and our democracy, our republic, has to respond to that. And the only people who can make that happen are, from our perspective at least, are people in office, because there's going to be regulatory discussions.
Right.
Now that Twitter is out of the hands of Democrats, you best believe there's going to be
Yeah.
regulatory
Now they're going to care.
discussions.
They care all of a sudden.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Section 230 reform was off the table until last
Right.
week.
Now they're on 230. It's
yeah.
on everybody's agenda right now.
Right. Yeah. Nancy Pelosi is just a huge trust buster. But and so people need to understand that, look, these reforms are going to take place if you value free speech and if you value ownership of your own data, your own information. People don't even realize that their data is like an asset.
Yeah. Yeah.
That they have no ownership of. And so we should be working with conservatives to say, hey, how do we bring people in? How do we figure out ways to give people ownership of their own data so that they understand it as their own? They can profit on it as their own if they choose. People will say, well, they exchanged their data for free, to be able to use Facebook. Well, that's not an even trade, right? Because you're not being told what the value of your data is.
Right.
So if, for example, like if Facebook came to me and said, look, your data is worth $150 to us, or however much it is. It varies by people and such as that. But if they were to come to me and say your data for your life is worth $150, well, I might be able to say, okay, maybe I'll sit on that and sell it at a later date and use it for retirement. I don't know. But however you do it, sell it through a brokerage firm.
Right.
There's a million ways you could come up with a regulatory scheme. But you cannot have a shareholder economy if people don't even own their own basic assets.
Right.
And that goes for everything. That goes for home ownership, right, which is disappearing. But I just think we should, expand our conception of the market, expand our conception of rights, and say that data is ours, right? Our transactions, our interactions on this great public square are ours to keep and ours to profit off of, ours to monetize how we want, or not to monetize. Someone can choose privacy if they want. It may be worth.
What a novel concept, right?
Right.
What impact will this move have on the other platforms that have recently come online? I've been in favor of, and I still am, developing technologies and new platforms. I think all of it's good. But 2 days ago, I got an email from Parler. I forgot I had a Parler account, but apparently I do. And they sent an email out to all their users and said, this doesn't change anything. We're still growing. We're still going. I'm a fan of Getter. Jason Miller did a live yesterday talking about the future of Getter. We've seen this on other platforms, Gab, for instance, and others. It sounds like they are concerned. Will this have a net impact on them, or is it just, it will be kind of more of the same? How do you look at that?
Yeah, I think it will. I like some of those apps, especially Getter. I have friends over there, and they're great people. But I thought once President Trump didn't get on Getter and he, went off into Truth, which I waited on the Truth sign up for like 4 weeks. And, I love the president. I was appointee for the president. Think he was a great president, but, Truth is just not social media I think I'll use a ton.
Yeah.
And I know most people are still on waiting lists. And I think that kind of took the momentum out of those guys' sales. It's good to have those things. We don't know. Musk could be unhinged.
Sure.
Musk could, you're talking about, we just put one of the great sources of information in the power of like one person's hands. It's kind of like, and now Jeff Bezos is criticizing him. It's like we criticize the Russian oligarchs surrounding Putin, and it's like, well, we have billionaires.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
So, so I think, they're going to be impacted. I think it's good. I hope people keep on those platforms enough to keep them alive. It's good to have a backup, but I think people are excited. Twitter is one of the big dogs. Conservatives are free to speak freely on it. It's the only platform where that's going to happen. And I think in retaliation, I think you're going to see the other tech platforms double down. I think they're going to succumb to pressure, which is going to be enormous from the White House, from regulators. I mean, this Department of Homeland
Yeah.
Security, like
Yeah.
misinformation,
Yeah.
this high council they're creating over there. They're scared. They're going to push. I think Facebook's algorithms are going to get worse. I think Instagrams will certainly get worse. And just TikTok, Snapchat, um, they they have had an unprecedented grip on information really since Watergate. Right? This has just been before there was social media. There was 5
Yeah.
newspapers
Yeah.
and 3
Yeah.
networks, and so they've always had control over the narrative, and they've really lost one of the key institutions that helped them do that, and I think they're worried, and they should be.
So last question, we look to the midterms. And I'm sure you've been asked this question probably 500 times in the last week, but will this, even though the deal is not finished, and it may not be before the midterms, we don't know exactly, but will this have an impact on the midterms? And then you just kind of answered the question I was going to ask, I think, but will the other platforms loosen up, or will they double down as we get closer to the elections?
Yeah. So, well, first off, I think they're going to double down. I think that that's their MO.
Yeah.
And one thing I totally disagree with AOC's politics, but one thing I admire about her is she'll just take an insult on the chin and give it right back.
Right.
And that's their whole MO. They double down for everything, and they know that conservatives sometimes can be afraid to do the
Yeah.
same. And so, no, I think we'll see a lot of censorship go through the rest of the platforms, at least in the short term. I don't think it's sustainable for them, because I think more business people naturally want to go where they're free.
Sure.
But in the short term, because of that Silicon Valley ethos and the pressure from Washington and the woke corporations and just all of the filth that's accumulated in these institutions, I think you'll see them double down. But I also think that this is emboldening for conservatives. This is one of the great wins for us.
Yeah.
We have to hold Musk accountable. We have to push Musk. I don't think he's perfect. I don't think this is a perfect resolution. But man, this is still a massive win for free speech. We should feel emboldened right now. We should be out talking about all the issues we care about, whether that's critical race theory, whether that's gender, all the cultural issues. Roe versus Wade will be decided potentially this summer, right? Think about the implications of what would have happened to conservatives in the aftermath of Roe versus Wade if there wasn't a free speech platform. There wouldn't have been a conservative movement online. They would have censored their way through everybody and banned everybody, because that would have been a stunning defeat for them. And so now, in the aftermath of that, we have a place where we can organize and battle and fight, and we're going to need it.
Colin, I really appreciate your perspectives. So many important things. I want to come back and talk about this again, and I know this is not an issue that's going to go away, so we'll have an opportunity. Where can people follow you, follow the work that you're doing, follow the writing? I just started following you on Twitter, and it seems like every day you're putting out good, relevant content. I appreciate that. Where do you want people to follow what you're doing?
Yeah, just find me on Twitter. Twitter is mostly what I'm doing, especially since it's like we were talking about. It's going to be the only free platform. It's at Pruitt_Colin, just Colin Pruitt, and got a picture on there, just kind of looking like I'm on vacation, and that's where I try to keep it.
Yeah.
So, it's not a serious Twitter, but I do put out stories for the American Conservative, sometimes Newsmax and a few other outlets, mostly the American Conservative, just about once a week. And that's always up on Twitter, where I'm trying to rally the troops and turn in some wins for the movement.
That's awesome. Well, Colin, thank you, man. Really appreciate it. And we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all for having me on. It was a great time.
Appreciate Colin's input. And when we talk about culture, it's hard to see the full picture and the full impact of things like social media. We look at these technology platforms. We say, well, how does that impact culture? It absolutely impacts culture. The things that we are allowed to do, not allowed to do, the places we can go and can't go, the decisions that we're being told we need to make, all of it comes back to so many of these technology platforms, and really appreciate that perspective. Please follow Colin. We'll get him back on our show, but follow him on social media. And I know that that would be a blessing to you to get the right perspectives. So many people providing those. Thank you for watching and listening. If you are listening and not watching, whatever platform it is you're listening from, and we talk about technology platforms all the time, often in the negative. They're great. They allow us to do shows like this and get the right information out, but make sure that you are subscribed to the Situation Report, and that will allow you to get this information as soon as it comes out 3 times a week. If you'd like to watch instead of listen, or maybe watch and listen at the same time, go to salemnow.com and you can find every episode there, and very excited to share those with you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you next time.